Hi YouTube. Okay, I told you guys I would update with a new video, and the system we're going to look at tonight is the 2.0 version. I'm calling it version 2.0. It's the second one I developed to go in the back of a truck. It's got all the same components. It's just got a little better frame on it probably. It's lighter weight, a little more portable, and a little easier to use. So we're going to hook that up tonight. I got the hose hooked up here, and I'm going to go ahead and hook up a water-fed pole to it, and I'm going to show kind of the performance of this unit. We've got, I did change out the tubing, the disconnectable tubing between all the filters to a black opaque tubing, because I noticed that the clear tubing, even though I could see the water flow in that, and I liked that part of it, it was beginning to green up after a period of time, and I believe it was growing a little algae in it. So I went to an opaque tubing. And I may go back to the clear one. I mean, I may just have to cut one every month or two to do that. We've had great results so far with our first system. My guys have been using it on the commercial. I own a commercial window cleaning company, and so we break it out, I would say probably 1 to 2 times a week for almost in an entire day. Maybe they use it for a half a day or a full day. And we, so far to this date, and it is now into May of 2020, we have used we have refilled one resin cartridge one time. So I still have most of a bag of resin left, and that is the only, and I think I changed one carbon filter in it so far. So I've probably spent, close to like a half year, maybe more than a half year now. We're probably into 7 or 8 months of using it. And using it pretty consistently, where at this point I think with like a phaser from ABC I would have gone through probably 20 to 30 filters if you include the front and rear as a pair. We probably would have gone through 15 to 20 sets of those at this point with the amount that we use it. And at this time I've done one resin refill, and I've done one carbon filter on the front end to the tune of probably $30. Which is the price of, less than the price of one of those filters. So that was usually a $70 change. So anyway, I'll go ahead and turn on the hose right now, and I'll show you how we hook up how I'm using. I've got a new system here now to hook the hose up to it with the hose tubing, and I'll kind of show you what I decided on, and then I'll show you how long it kind of takes it to run through before you start getting the purified water out of the end of your brush. We'll test the TDS on that, kind of show you how it works and how far it sprays. And I'm working on my Patreon page right now. So if you go to Patreon, there's a link on the YouTube page. You can click on that, and that's where I'm going to post the videos on how to build this. And that's where I'm also going to post the links. And I'm probably going to go ahead and order all those parts again, and we're going to put it together on camera. It'll probably be a series of 3 videos, and I'm going to charge a little bit of money per video and a little bit of money for the link sheet to the parts. So most of those will come off Amazon, but there will be a couple other places that you'll have to go to get some fittings and some various other, maybe a filter. So I'm working on that right now. I should have that up in the next week or two. I think today is May 21st, 2020. So actually May 20th, 2020. So my son's here, we're shooting the video, and I'll go ahead and turn the water on, and we'll show you what the action is. Okay, so we're back, and I've got the hose hooked up now. I've turned on the water. I'm just using a residential spigot here in the Kansas City area. What I've been told, these are about 50 to 60 PSI. And I have very little leaks. I had a little bit of water run out of the housing on the carbon filter on the front. There's an O-ring that goes underneath here. And what I probably need to do is just put a little bit more silicone grease around that O-ring and then reseed that. Every now and then you have to replace those O-rings. As you can see, there's no drips. There was a little drip at the hose connection where it came in here on the front side. So I've tightened that up, and we've got no drips here on any of the tubing. These are great little connectors. I'm going to tell you where to get those on a deal, and I worked with a lot of different fittings to make this work. So this is the type of flow that you get out of the back end, and I have a push connect. And this is the purified water. So I have a push connect hose fitting on the back end. I was using a quick coupler, and I removed those because I found it was probably just simpler to take the tubing itself from the water fed pole and just push it in there. When you start these systems up, when you initially, I've got a shutoff valve here, and so you want this hose on the back end to trickle to get rid of the TDS, which is the total dissolved solids that build up in the RO membrane itself. So every time you hook this thing up to a hose initially, what you want to do is you want to turn the shutoff valve all the way open, and you want to flush that membrane, because the last time, at the end of every use, you want to flush it for about a minute or two to get the TDS out of the reverse osmosis membrane. And then, of course, with it open, then you lose your pressure on the back end, so you don't get the flow of the water out of the back end. But you do want to let them flush out every time you use it. And then once you let it flush for a couple minutes, which I've already done here, then you want to just go ahead and turn the shutoff valve down to sort of a trickle. The flow will stop more and more. And then you want to get it to the point where it's just trickling, and that relieves some of the pressure on the inside of the system, but it also continues to remove that TDS from the RO membrane and ensures that you don't push it back through to the DI resin on the back end filter. So now that I've shut it down and I've just got it kind of trickling out of here, that's about where you want it to be. And you'll know, because it'll start pumping out the pure water on the back end, and you can kind of see where the flow's at, and you can kind of see the pressure, and it doesn't look like a lot. But when you hook the hose up to it, let's go ahead and do that, Lance. Let me back up here a little bit, and I'll just find the end of this thing wherever it's at. I also went to a little bigger blue hose for a little more flow from the hose out. So all I do now is I just come up, instead of messing with push connectors, I just come up and I just push this thing in. And so it's that simple. And it doesn't drip anymore. And when I want to remove it, I just come to the back end, I push this green piece in and slide that piece out. And I'll show you that in a minute. But we're pumping through the hose. So anyway, we already started kicking water. Okay, and that's my flow rate. And that's with no auxiliary pump. And we got a little air in there, and I'll just make sure my upper tubes are kind of connected. This is a 3-way connector up here at the top. So you got the main flow that comes through here. And you can see when you turn it on how far out there that's shooting. I would say we have, I think we're shooting probably easily 15, 16, 17 feet out there into the grass. And I would say I'm easily 15 feet away from the house. And if I turn towards the house here, I'm definitely hitting the house. So I have my entire patio, my grill, all my stuff there, and I'm still cranking right over there on that back window. So that's the flow rate, and that's no auxiliary pump, and that is just simply pushing water from a hose spigot, a residential hose spigot here in Kansas City out there. And I love these, by the way, if you get a chance, these Gardner poles, these are unbelievable. And I've had I have 2 of them from ABC, and they're nice. They've got a nice height on them, and they've got a nice weight on them. But this is like a 24 footer, I think, from Gardner, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it's the Gardiner brand. And they are super lightweight. This thing weighs like 2 pounds, and it goes up 25 feet. So with your height, you're almost to 30 feet on this thing, and you can do almost all route work. And they're super rigid and lightweight. These things are awesome. So anyway, just a pole. I want to plug that a little bit, because these are probably the nicest I've seen. So anyway, you see the flow rate I'm getting. I mean, we're shooting out here pretty good, and we'll test it with a TDS meter here again, and I'll show you kind of what's coming out of the hose here around the house, and then also what's coming out on the back end. So I'll go grab, after I wash a couple of these windows here, I got it hooked up, might as well take care of it. After I get this cleaned up, I'll go grab my TDS meter, and we'll take a look at the readings on the back end, and then I'll go ahead and unhook the hose, and I'll show you what I'm getting on the front end out of the garden hose, and you can see the difference. So anyway, we had great results. This thing works. I mean, it is just absolutely sweet. It has eliminated almost all of our ladder work, which is really what I wanted to do initially. And again, very inexpensive to operate. I can't imagine that you could do this any cheaper with anybody else's system, because just the price of their filters. So again, I think my chlorine filter cost me about $12 a piece. They've lasted at least 6 months, and the resin refill is probably a $10 to $15 refill. And I don't even, that may be liberal on my estimation there. It may just be $5 or $10 to fill that stuff up with resin, because I've still got a big bag left, and I think that whole bag cost me like $90, and I bet I've got 5 or 6 refills in there. So anyway, this is how it works. It's beautiful. I mean, you can see what it's doing. I mean, it's got good pressure. I'm 3 feet away from that window right now, and it's just blasting it, for the rents, and it looks, it's just got really good pressure. So anyway, we've been super happy with it. I think you guys will too, and I'm really looking forward to being on Patreon pretty soon here and having you guys as members. And I got to charge a little bit because I've done a lot of research on this, but I think it'll be well worth your time. I think we can build the whole thing out for approximately, let's just say $1,000 bucks, but it'll probably be between $900 and $1,000 with all the parts to get it done. That will also give you some replacement filters to have sitting on a shelf for the couple times a year you might need them, and a bag of resin too. So it's a pretty sweet system. And I thank you again for watching, and I'll come back with a TDS and we'll shoot those numbers. Thank you. Okay, so on the last part of the video here, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I got a TDS meter. It's registering 0, obviously, because doesn't have any water on it, but I'm going to go ahead and plug it up here to the brush. Lance, if you want to follow me over. Pull some water out of here, kind of clean the cap out, and get that filled up. And as you can see, it stays right at 0 with the water in there, okay? And just to show that I'm not, BSing anybody, I'll just let it run right there. Okay, you can see there's no fluctuation. It's 0, and it will stay 0 for a long time. And actually, when we replaced the resin last time, I think we were only doing like, it was like maybe a 1 or a 2 parts per million or something like that when I decided to change it out, because I just like to keep it so low because it runs at 0 so long. So once it gets to 1 or 2, I went ahead and changed the resin that one time. So anyway, you can see we're still doing that. So that we aren't trying to do something magical here, let's keep this running, and I'll go ahead and we'll do the hose TDS, and you guys can see what that's registering. I'm just going to walk over here and actually, I can probably just run most of that right here out of this shutoff valve. So as I open up, here, yeah, and this will be good because this will give you a reading. This will show you what's going on here after the difference between the RO, when we come out of the back end on the RO, why we have the DI resin on the back end. Because right now what I've done is I've simply allowed the water to flow out of the RO membrane. And this is going to be TDS water, so this should be relatively high on the numbers. So if I put that right in there, right there, I'm getting, well, of course, you can't see that, but I'm getting like it's fluctuating, but generally hanging out between, let's just say 50 and 100 there. And that's sort of after some RO membrane filtration, but mostly what I'm doing, remember, I'm flushing out TDS here. So I'm getting some filtering, but I'm also still flushing the system. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. That's going to relieve my pressure here on my hose, and I'll go ahead and take that loose, and then we'll look at the numbers straight out of the spigot and go from there. So you might want to back up just a little bit, Lance. We might get a little bit wet here, but we got some flow. Now I'm going to shut the water off real quick. Okay. Are we still recording? Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm going to unhook the hose. All right. And then I'm going to get a reading off the hose water. Okay. So back to hose water here in Kansas City. We're going to put the little cup in here and fill that up. And now we're going to take our reading. And as you can see on there, I'm getting 229 parts per million. So if you can test your water around your area, if you're much higher, I still would say this thing's probably going to work for you. But certainly, I mean, I don't think that's low TDS just in general. I don't think that's pretty hard water here in Kansas City. So, at 228, and take one more reading. Just see if we get anything different. Yeah, 225, 224. It's right in there, just hanging in the mid 220s. So that's the reading, and down to 0 with this system. So again, thanks for watching. Just wanted to show you how it worked, and it's working great for us, guys. It's spot free, and it does what it's supposed to do. So thanks again for watching. Check out my Patreon page. We'll get those other videos uploaded and the parts links. You're gonna have to pay a little bit for it because this is taking a lot of money to figure all this out and do it the best way. And I mean, I've done things as far as even on the very end. So like my quick connects on my tubing, I went ahead and I used brass. And I didn't really want to use brass, but because that will leach some metals over a period of time and put that back in the system, and I am super particular. But on the back end, after it was all filtered, I went ahead and went with a stainless steel push connect so that I didn't leach any kind of metal from here and get any spike in a number, maybe a 1 or a 2 coming out of the brush. So I do have some brass in it. I would prefer that everything was stainless steel because that would work better long term, and it won't leach any of the metals out of because brass will do that after a period of time. You may have seen that on your power washers. The quick couplers on the end of them sometimes get a little corroded, and that is TDS, and that is what you're trying to remove. So with the system, we haven't had any problems with that, but I just wanted to make sure, even on the back end, that I put a stainless steel one after I'm completely filtered and clean coming out of here, that we weren't punching that number up at all as we go through our hose out to our brush. So, I mean, I've thought about this on every level, and thing works sweet. Again, thanks for watching, and check out the Patreon page.